So I'll be talking about another experience. This is a project we conducted and is still ongoing in Tanzania, where the ultimate purpose is to enable an increase and stabilization of smallholder farmers' incomes through the participation of more profitable agricultural markets. In this case, we were focusing on the paddy and rice market. And one particularity of this example is of the training component or the capacity development component of this project is that it's at the micro level. We're targeting the end beneficiary directly. We're not targeting the meso level, which we also work with organizations. We're going directly to the beneficiary. So that gives it a little bit another dimension. And the key development focus is to develop capacities of smallholder families so that they're able to increase their production, marketing, and loan management skills, so that they are able to participate in more profitable but also more demanding agricultural markets. Now, the whole capacity development component strategy was based on a collaboration with the private sector, in particular Rabobank. I don't know if you are familiar with this group. Rabobank is a holding, a big, large banking holding from the Netherlands, who is perhaps one of the most active lenders and investors in agriculture across Africa at a very commercial level. And over time, they have developed also a division of corporate social responsibility where they do some activities that don't have necessarily a commercial focus, but intend to provide some services and developmental impact to the communities where they work. And I'll talk a little bit more about the corporate social responsibility strategy of Rabobank. But we decided to merge forces based on the complementarities that we saw. And I'll talk about the roles of FAO and Rabobank Foundation. The main idea is that FAO comes to develop capacities specifically on productivity, agricultural best practices that increase productivity, but also improve managerial capacities related to marketing skills, marketing strategies, being able to administer within the producers' organization the production that is coming from all members and be able to allocate it between different buyers. So we developed a tailored marketing strategy for them. We trained them on post-harvest practices, mainly storage and harvesting. We very much focus on introducing the system of rice intensification, which increase yields. And for that, we partner with several local NGOs with very strong track record in working with paddy producers, specifically in the region where we were working, which is the Morogoro district in Tanzania, and where FAO and the NGO jointly collaborate to deliver the trainings. Now, what Rabobank Foundation brings is a lot of information about how to create linkages to buyers and actors in these agricultural markets. And they also provide training specifically on loan management skills, both training and coaching. I like to always talk about the two because we seldom talk about coaching, which is part of capacity development. Coaching is following up with your trainees when they actually put in practice what they've learned, because as they learn by doing, there's a lot of corrections and tweaks that need to take place for the knowledge actually to be translated into more transformative action. And this coaching aspect is perhaps the most important thing that the partnership brought, the partnership with Rabobank Foundation brought. So the main contributions of Rabobank, if you want to summarize them, I would argue that first, it provides private agribusiness networks. It provides FAO access to private agribusiness networks. When you're talking about socioeconomic development projects that aim to have a transformative impact, you need the private to understand the private sector, and we have to recognize and be conscious that within our public networks, we seldom have access to private information that is very, very local. So Rabobank Foundation enabled us to identify a whole range of buyers, traders, storage, exporters working in the Morogoro district with names and last names and phone numbers, so that we were able to conduct our assessment and find out what kind of varieties they needed, the quantities they needed, the qualities that they needed, so that we were able to design our own capacity development programs accordingly. So at the end, the producers will deliver something that the market actually wants. So that is very, very valuable, and that's something that is not easy for us in the public sector to tap on. The second part is this private information and knowledge that they have about the value chain, who's who, what kind of relationships there are within the value chain actors, so that we can, as FAO, determine what is the best way for our producers groups to approach these buyers with a concrete marketing strategy that we know has chances of working, and that is of benefit to our smallholder farmers. And the third important dimension that the Rabobank Foundation brings is that because they're a local player, that means that in itself, Rabobank has a local bank, commercial bank there. They have permanent presence. And because they're the private sector, their operations are independent of project funding. So once the project funding ends, our work stops and the work of our partners NGOs stop. But the work of Rabobank Foundation continues. And the whole idea is that once those capacities of smallholders have been developed, they become potential clients of the Rabobank commercial activities, as well as any other bank. There's no commitment to the Rabobank commercial branch. But that enables Rabobank to continue to monitor them, to advise them on where they can sell their projects, so that they can advise their investment projects whenever there's a difficulty that arises. And we have to understand that in these type of interventions, you're asking a vulnerable group to participate in a market that they never worked in which they never worked before. So it's a learning curve. The first year, they will face some problems, and during that year, we are there to help them. But the second year or third year, we may not be there, and they will face other types of problems that they need to figure out how to overcome. So if they got a partner, a local partner that is able to guide them and advise them on what to do, then much better until the fourth or even fifth year, where they become experts at it. And this, unfortunately, is something that us from the public sector, that long-term coaching is something that's very difficult to do, given that our institutional constraints of being subject to a project cycle. So some of the lessons from this experience is, well, as I was mentioning, just summarizing what I've said, local information and knowledge about private actors is very important to shape our own public interventions. So that ability to collaborate with the private sector is very useful. And in this particular case, this collaboration came right from the beginning. There was a co-design of capacity interventions. The very first time FAO went to the field, we went with Rabobank Foundation officers, and we started co-designing our activities, so that there's ownership from both sides on whatever work we're doing, and the beneficiaries see us as both as partners, you know, as people that they can count on. I emphasize the aspect of coaching that Rabobank Foundation gives, because coaching activity takes many, many years, not fitting our usual project cycles. But to partner with the private sector, you need to know the private sector. We need to know the private sector How this collaboration with Rabobank came to being really could go back around 10 years when the work of FAO in the area of agricultural finance and investment, we ended up always, finding Rabobank there in our countries where we work, looking at the projects they were investing in. An interaction started because it was key in our assessments to understand how investors and financial institutions are dealing with agriculture. And that created a relationship between the technical officers in both organizations that eventually came into formality as, I think very much driven by this strengthened focus of finding ways for FAO to partner with the private sector. With that initiative, we were able to formalize an MOU and finally agree on very specific, concrete collaboration activities. And that's how Tanzania was one of the focus countries, and that's how we ended up doing this project.